Star Trek fans, and welcome to my ranking of the Star Trek movies, Part 2. Part 2 of my Star Trek ranking, yes. Sorry it's been a few days, but this is obviously taken quite a while to edit, so I needed to get it recorded and whatnot. And I've been working as well. I'm trying to get back into my normal routine as I've been away on holiday, blah blah blah, etc. You don't need to know my life story. Anyway, so before we continue, just want to, in case anybody didn't see part 1 of my ranking, and if you can't be bothered to watch it, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna just recap my list. So far, I've ranked numbers 13 to 7 in part 1 of this video. So number 13 was Star Trek X, Nemesis. Number 12 was Star Trek IX, Insurrection. Number 11 was Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Number 10 was Star Trek Generations. Star Trek VII, Generations. Number 9 was Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. Number 8 was Star Trek I, The Motion Picture. Number 7 was Star Trek Into Darkness. So, we have number 6. Now, number 6, this was a really difficult one. I don't know, because I was really debating whether or not to put this one below Into Darkness or not. But Into Darkness retreads into territory that we've already seen, so for that reason I had to bump it down. But I still like Into Darkness. I really like it. I think it's a great, fun movie. But this one I think is a bit more original, which is why I am going to say number 6 is Star Trek VIII. On reflection, I think First Contact is a really well-made film. It's not my favourite of the Star Trek movies by any means, hence putting it at number 6, but I've always... Well, it's very clearly, out of the 4 next-gen films, it's the best. I mean, you know, to say that the Next Generation crew only have one good film is pretty disgraceful. I mean, this is the only time when the Next-Gen crew really got it right in terms of the films. I've not seen the show, so I can't compare, but First Contact is a good film, and I think it's great fun. It's more of an action piece, but I think that works in its favour. The story is basic enough, it's simple, but it works, and there's a lot more drama and tension. You really see Picard's general hatred. He just erupts. It explodes into anger with, you know, the Borg because of, you know, what happens. And that argument scene he has with Alfred Woodard's character, I can't remember her name, but that is just brilliant when he says, oh, you know, the line must be drawn here. It's very dramatic, very powerful. I mean, I have an issue with the crew, though. Throughout all 4 of these next-gen films, the crew are fucking useless. They're so bad. I mean, it's not the actors, it's the writing. The writing gives the supporting cast nothing to do. All we get throughout the 4 movies is focused on Picard and Data, and it pisses me off. I mean, it's not so bad in this movie. I mean, most of the time they're going to rescue Data because he gets captured by that woman. I've forgotten the names. I've only seen this film once, so I can't remember the names of all the characters. But fans of this film will know what I mean. I think this movie's directed really well. Jonathon, who's actually in the film, as... Is it Riker? Yeah, Riker. Yeah, he plays Riker. But he's also in the film. I think this is his best directed film. I mean, he directed Insurrection, and look how that turned out. I mean, you know, this movie's pretty serious. It takes itself seriously. But it's a fun action romp. I like the story. The story's good. The Borg are pretty entertaining villains. Yeah, I think it's a decent film. I don't think it's anything spectacular, like some of the other films on this list, above this, but it's certainly a good film, and it's the best of the 4 next-gen films. Skip Generations, skip Insurrection, skip Nemesis, just stick with First Contact. It's a good movie. I can't elaborate very much more because I can't remember everything, and I haven't seen this for a while, so watch my review if you want extended thoughts. And I also like the music by Jerry Goldsmith. Very nice opening theme. It's kind of soppy, but it works. It works. Okay, so number 5. Again, this was a difficult one. I have a bit of a soft spot for this one. Yeah, Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Yeah, or in other words, the one with the whales. Oh dear. I mean, Star Trek 4. I think it's going to be it's one that probably divides a lot of fans. I like it a lot. I think it's great. I think as a one-off, this was great. I don't think they should try anything like this again. But the idea of, obviously, you know, the whales is just bizarre. It's just strange for a Star Trek film. It's basically a campaign promoting sea life. It's a Save the Whales campaign. That's what it is. I mean, when you read that far into it. But if you can look past that and the bizarreness of the plot, it's actually quite a fun movie, and it's different. It's a very nice departure after the darkness of the third movie, which really depressed a lot of audiences, and it made the third one really redundant and really boring until the end. But this one's a nice departure. Leonard Nimoy, I think, and crew and co, they sat down, they thought about it. They were like, okay, right, the third movie was kind of shit. What do we do? Where do we go from here? Okay, and it works. I mean, surprisingly, it works. I feel the camaraderie between the crew very much. It's just a fun romp of a Star Trek movie. That hospital scene is great. This is where they go for a lighter tone, and I think it's great. The comedy is fantastic, particularly with Bones. Bones is funny in this one. Spock is also very funny when he's trying to learn the new sort of like 80s American slang, and you see, it's all tongue in cheek. It's for the time. It was 86. It was 1986, and yeah, you know, audiences could have. I could certainly appreciate it. It was the most down to earth they've ever been. Literally down to earth, where they've been on Earth for the most time. This is the only film where they've really spent so much time on Earth. I mean, obviously in Star Trek Beyond, they get stranded on the other planet, but it's that's different. With this, I can appreciate the fun a bit more. I really like Gillian as a character. I think she's a very strong presence. She comes into this. If she were to have joined the crew, I wouldn't have minded, actually. I think she would have been an interesting asset, but as a one-off character, she works really well. And she kind of... she's almost like... If you were a first-time viewer like myself, she's almost... you know, like that. We're almost... The audience can ultimately relate to Gillian a lot more, as she's seeing all of this for the first time, you know, all this futuristic stuff. I mean, obviously, if you're a long-time Star Trek fan, you'd be used to this by now, but as an early viewer of the films, I was able to relate to her in a lot of ways, to really see everything that was going on, and it's a very fun movie, and the climax is great, the music is good. By the end, you really do feel the crew have gone on a journey. A lot of people say that Star Trek 2, 3, and 4 are like a trilogy. I would say, yeah, kind of, but the fourth one doesn't really continue after the third. Well, it kind of does, but not majorly. It doesn't make a point of continuing after the third one. It tries to be standalone at points, but I think that works. And Leonard Nimoy's direction is much better. He improved, and he should have directed the fifth one. Oh God, William Shatner should never direct again. But it's not my favourite simply because I can't ignore the plot is strange, and it's not gonna appeal to everyone. I think people like Trekkies will get past it. They'll appreciate it, or maybe they might do. I mean, I don't know. But if you're new to this and you're coming into this like I was, it's gonna go either way. You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. Star Trek 4 is like Marmite. You're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. That's really all I can say. Okay, so number 4. Now, this might surprise some people. Number 4 is the Star Trek reboot of 2009. Star Trek. Yeah, the first of the two J.J. Abrams Star Trek films. Star Trek, the 2009 reboot, is a fantastically fun romp. I think it's a lot better than Into Darkness. I mean, Into Darkness is still good, but the originality is a bit of a problem. I mean, don't get me wrong, Alan, I agree with you. They're very well made, but Into Darkness, just because it retreads, I know it's a different timeline, but it would be better to be original. That's all I'm saying. Sorry there. Just another message to get rid of. But having said that, Star Trek 2009, it's a great movie. I think it's fantastic. After the disappointment, the sluggish shitfest of Nemesis, I think it was about time that Star Trek got a reboot. And boy, was this a fun movie. This basically kicked ass. It's kicked the shit out of Nemesis and all of the Next Gen movies. This is basically the Star Trek Next Generation movies done right. It kind of feels like the best of both worlds, like the Next Gen and the original series sort of blending together. Like J.J. Abrams was able to give sort of a flavour of both. Because this is essentially an action piece, but you get the great character moments too. And that is what the Next Generation lacked, was the character moments. And they just descended into silly, cartoonish vibes. It became messy. It was almost unfilmic. This breathes new life into Star Trek, and it establishes... I mean, it could have done with a bit more of the exploration aspects of Star Trek. It didn't really homage the original, but I think that's fine, because it was a new thing. It was a new thing. For this time, they had the freedom to just do what they wanted. And this cast has really come into their own. I mean, over the 3 films, they've really developed. And with this first movie, they were just already on point. I mean, Chris Pine as Kirk, he's great. I mean, in this one, he's more of a rebel. In Into Darkness and Beyond, he matures into more of a captain, into he becomes James T. Kirk. This is about him sort of becoming himself and finding his place in Starfleet and continuing his father's legacy. And his story is very good, and it's about his relationship with Spock. And Spock, Zachary Quinto, is absolutely fantastic. He does Leonard Nimoy proud. I mean, of course, Leonard Nimoy is the Spock. He's the Spock. He's the classic Spock. You can't really top him, but it wasn't about topping him, and Zachary Quinto made the role his own. And he's a surprisingly decent lookalike as well. I mean, they don't look too far off, actually. And they're both in the film. Leonard Nimoy has a cameo in the film, and that's great. They made him a part of the story. It was almost a way to kind of unintentionally connect all of the films. So I can appreciate that as well. And the action is great, even though there's a lot of lens flares. I don't, with regards to the lens flares, I don't mind them, but I don't think JJ needs to use them in every shot. It can become a bit distracting and they are overused, and it's it's like, JJ, turn the lights off, man. Turn the lights off. Oh dear. But speaking of J.J. Abrams, his direction is pretty damn solid, and he's managed to create a good sense of drama. I mean, it's also about pushing Spock to the emotional point, because he's half human, and they really sort of touch on that. The fact that, because he loses, Vulcan, and, he was bullied as a kid, and, he doesn't like Kirk, and all of these things build and build and build, and then when you see him erupt, you totally get why he does it. And because Kirk knows he has to push him to that point, and that's great. Simon Pegg is great as Scotty. He doesn't get much to do in this one, but he's still very good. Uhura is great. Zoe Saldana, I mean, she's a babe. She's hot. But she's a fantastic actress too. You've also got Anton Yelchin, rest in peace, as Chekhov, who's brilliant. John Cho Sulu. They're all a great cast. They're just fantastic. The visual effects are brilliant. Probably the best they've ever been for any of the Star Trek movies. The action is great. I don't think the villain is very good though. Nero, I don't particularly like him very much. Eric Bana's he's a bit of a meh actor, He's a bit so-so. He's not terrible, you just don't care for him. I don't give him enough screen time, he doesn't really get much development. The opening scene is powerful, I have to say, when George Kirk dies in the battle. That's very epic. And I thought that was a very interesting way to open the film. And the music by Michael Giacchino is great. That theme, you know, the da 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 da. It's an epic Star Trek theme, and I'm glad they've kept it for the sequels as well, Into Darkness and beyond. Star Trek 2009 is great, and the technical aspects are really good. Like the camera work's fantastic. I didn't know Sulu could be that much of a badass. I mean, when they're fighting on that drill thing, that's great. I really like it. I think it's great. Tune in for my review for further thoughts. But yeah. So, we're into the top 3 now, top 3 territory. I imagine some people are going to be quite surprised at number 3. Number 3 is actually the latest Star Trek film, the one that marks the 50th anniversary, the third of the reboot era, Star Trek Beyond. Right, Star Trek Beyond. Yeah, I've seen this film twice now. And I have to say, I was very impressed. I was surprised. When I saw the teaser trailer, I thought, oh shit, this is probably going to be pretty crap. But I was pretty surprised. It's actually very good. It's very well done. I was surprised also because J.J. Abrams is no longer directing. He's just producing. We have Justin Lin who took over. And I was worried because of his resume consists of Fast and Furious. That's about it. So to have him jump onto Star Trek was a bit of a risk. Ugh. I don't know. I mean, I was worried. I had my reservations, but I have to say they came out with a pretty great film. Well, I think this is the best of the rebooted era, simply because it's the best of both worlds. It blends the action of the first 2 Abrams films, along with that, character moments of the original series. I mean, it doesn't quite have the space exploration aspect. Well, it does actually. No, forget that. It does. At the very beginning, you have the kind of space exploration aspect when they're in like 3 years into their 5-year mission, and then things take a turn for the worst. You get a big action attack, and then they get stranded on the planet, and that was a brilliant move for me because then everybody's paired off. You have these characters all doing, all these different things. Sorry, I'm just trying to get comfortable. You have all these characters, Bones and Spock was the best. They were the best. They provided the most comedy, and it was nice to develop their relationship actually for a change, because the first 2 movies focused so much on Kirk and Spock as well. You've also got you have Chekhov and Kirk. Rest in peace, Anton. With that plot, and then Uhura and Sulu. Scotty, who's kind of on his own until he meets Jayla. Jayla's a great character. I think she's great, and if she is to appear in the next movie, then all the best for her, because I think she's a great character and I liked her story. She does feel kind of thrown in there, but I think it's good that she becomes an ally. I like that. And as the action is great. It's a bit different to J.J. Abrams, but it's not really. It's like very fast and like Fast and Furious, essentially. It's like Fast and Furious in space, essentially. As you have Justin Lin. Speaking of Justin Lin, I was very surprised. I'd not heard of him to be the most competent director in the world, but he did really well with this film. I have to say, all of the action works really well. The drama's great. You really feel the camaraderie between the team, and when they come together at the end, it is brilliant. You feel like they've all gone on a journey, like they all trust each other now. Over the 3 films, they've managed to retain a sense of respect and love for each other, and they trust in Kirk as their captain, and they trust each other. Kirk trusts in them as well. It's fantastic to see them, and they have the best chemistry out of the entire 3 films they've done so far. Obviously, they've got one more. Guaranteed they got one more, but I'm not sure if they're going to do any more after that. It depends how well the films do. I mean, I don't think Beyond is doing as well as they hoped, but I don't know. I mean, it's weird because critically and audience-wise, the first two were fairly well received. The critics seem to really like them. Most of the audience like the reboot films. Some of the hardcore Trekkies don't particularly like them because they're like, oh, they're just action films. They're not true Star Trek films. It's like, oh, yeah, well, it's a different take. I mean, I'm no Trekkie, so I'm open to various different interpretations and visions, which is great. And as for the villain, Kral, Idris Elba, he's good enough when, he doesn't do much, but when you realise his backstory, when you discover his backstory at the end, you're like, okay, it makes a bit more sense now. But yeah, he's not the best villain ever. He's alright, I guess. He has a good final confrontation with the Kirk, and his death is quite good. Again, the music is great by Michael Giacchino. I like the sets as well. The production design is fantastic, and the writing is the best of the three reboot films. Simon Pegg, who also co-wrote the film, did a great job. He didn't give himself too much to do. He gave all of the characters enough development, so that was fantastic. All of the team felt like the fully fledged team that we know and love. And it's a shame that Anton Yelchin isn't going to be returning to do any more. It's so sad that he passed away, and I'm sure his memory will live on. Whoever replaces him as Chekhov will have a hard act to follow. If they are going to recast him, unless they just don't have Chekhov in a Star Trek film, but they can't do that because Chekhov's a great character. He's an essential character. Ugh. So I don't know, it could go either way. I just hope that the person who is, if they are going to recast Anton, I hate to talk about it like this, but if they are going to recast Anton, I hope that the person that does replace him will do him justice and do it in his memory. So, rest in peace, Anton. You were a great Chekhov for these three films. You were great. Yeah, I mean, the film, it does sort of slow down towards the middle, but that's good because you get to spend more time with the characters. But it doesn't forget that it's an action film, and the scene when they use the Sabotage song is quite interesting. How it all sort of links back to the first film, because they used that song in the teaser trailer, and it did seem like a bit of an odd choice to use. But I'd actually forgotten that was also in the first movie, the Star Trek 2009 film, when you see young Kirk. But yeah, no, Star Trek Beyond is great, and of course the Enterprise goes crashing down again, and they rebuild another one. It's happened so many times. You just have to kind of get over it, don't you? So, number 2 is Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. This is a great Star Trek movie. I think the strengths of this one are the fact that it goes somewhere different. Boldly goes where no filmmaker went before. Like all of the scenes in the mines, you'd never see that in another Star Trek film. And like you really see Kirk and Bones develop their relationship. All the political stuff to do with the Romulans and everything. It feels like more of a sequel to Star Trek 3. Kirk being framed for murder, and he's also still grieving about the death of his son, which happened in David, which happened in the third movie. If that's the case, so did in Star Trek 4 and 5, did he just forget that his son died? He doesn't show any signs of him grieving there. Well, I know the fourth one was sort of a departure from the tone of the third one, but the fifth one, like, he doesn't. I think there's a couple of moments when they reference it, but it doesn't get talked about very much. Oh well, bizarre. Anyway, it's got great action as well. It's a great swan song for the original crew, and the ending is very bittersweet. This is what Nemesis should have done. If you're going to make the ending sad, just make it bittersweet. They killed off Data, that was so forced, and, this movie it was an apology for the fifth movie, and it was also a nice ending for them, because they were all past it by this point. This was 91. But yeah, I think Christopher Plummer's pretty good, from what I can recall. He's pretty good. Obviously, some of the visual effects are quite dated now, but it still holds up fairly well. Ugh. Excuse me. And it's a great ending. It's a really great ending, and I think everybody's acting at their best, and they play it much more straight. It doesn't go silly like the fifth one, and the drama's quite real, and when what's her name betrays them, you really do feel the tension of that as well. So I mean, I can't say much more because it was a while ago since I watched the film. But watch my review if you want my extended thoughts. So, as you can probably have guessed, my favourite Star Trek movie, the best Star Trek movie in my opinion, would have to be Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Yeah. Excuse me. So, The Wrath of Khan. What needs to be said about this film? This film is magnificent. It's really, really good. I think Ricardo Montalban is still the best villain of the Star Trek movies. He's just fantastic. He's just really good. And he poses such a threat. You really feel you feel the tension when he's threatening the team and he's putting pressure on Kirk. You feel the pressure. I know Into Darkness tries to recoil this. I know that's a different timeline, but I didn't feel that. I mean, I like Benedict Cumberbatch in the role, but I didn't feel the pressure as much as with Ricardo Montalban. Really feel that the crew are literally on the very, they pushed to the very edge, and Kirk is, you know, you might think he's fighting his last fight. Oh, sorry, tired. And obviously the ending is very powerful with the death of Spock. The action feels so dramatic. It's probably the best action of all the Star Trek films, although the reboot films do provide some entertaining action sequences. I think the acting's really good. Shatner and Nimoy especially in that scene. The production design is fantastic. It's a much better paced film than the motion picture. That movie was a bit of a snail. This one, you can enjoy it more. There's a bit more action. It's a bit more dramatic, and the new characters work really well. Everybody, this is the time when you feel the camaraderie the most between the team, and you feel that everything is at stake. The stakes are so high, anyone could die at any point, and because of Khan, Ricardo Montalban as Khan really does. It does put, like I said, it does put pressure on the team. So you never know when he's going to strike next, and it's brilliant drama. It's fantastic. Oh, sorry, I'm yawning. It's quite late. But yeah, that's all I can say at the moment. Watch my review for extended thoughts. So that's it, folks. That's my list. My ranking of the Star Trek movies. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Put your comments down below. Let me know. I'm sure a lot of you probably will disagree. Most of these movies I've only just seen once, so the list could be subject to change when I rewatch the movies in the near future, in later future. But just before I go, I'll recap my list. So number 13, Star Trek X, Nemesis. Number 12, Star Trek IX, Insurrection. Number 11, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Number 10, Star Trek VII, Generations. Number 9, Star Trek III, Search for Spock. Number 8, Star Trek The Motion Picture. 7, Star Trek Into Darkness. 6, Star Trek First Contact. 5, Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. 4, Star Trek 2009. 3, Star Trek Beyond. 2, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. And 1, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan! Yes, so that's it. That's it, folks. Thank you for watching my Star Trek reviews and rankings. So, that's it until the next movie, which is probably going to be another 3-4 years, maybe. So, until then, I can't actually do this, but I'm going to try. Live long and prosper. No, I can't do it. I'm gonna just try and do it like this. Live long and prosper. No, I can't do it. But in any case, I want to, say also that at some point, myself, Alan Kalo, and the Watcher will be doing 2 more Star Trek hangouts. We got to do our hangout of the Next Generation films, the 4 movies of the TNG era. So that's Generations, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis, and then the reboot films in a separate one. So Star Trek 2009, Into Darkness, and beyond. So yeah. Thank you guys all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. Tarnus11. See ya.